for today's presentation. Thank you all for joining us for our next edition of Technically Speaking. Joining us today is Dr. Matthew or Hugh Henry to talk about some developments in augmented reality technology. Dr. Henry is a game developer with over a decade of experience of working in the industry and developing games. He is one of our adjunct professors at UAT in the virtual reality department. So thank you for joining us today, and go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about augmented reality today, and I'm going to focus a lot on kind of the innovation and looking at an innovative way at augmented reality. So I'll go ahead and share a screen here. I've got a PowerPoint deck. You'll have to forgive me. Normally when we teach here at UAT, we don't do a lot of like lecture with PowerPoint, click, etc. It's a lot more discussion oriented, talking to the students and spending a lot of time really communicating the ideas and making sure, you know, everyone's thinking about things in an interesting way. So if I get a little weird with the PowerPoints or click at the wrong times, it's kind of a thing that I don't do as often, but I'll go ahead and share this here. Hopefully it's coming up all right. That I'm going to look at innovation. Innovation is a big part of what we do here at UAT. In fact, it's in our mission statement. We say that our goal is to, you know, educate students in advancing technology who innovate for our future. So innovation's right there in our mission. It's one of the things that we aim to do. So my big goal on this talk is not just to talk about what AR is doing now, but to kind of provide triggers that'll help you think of ways to innovate on AR in the future. So when we think about AR generally, this is the kind of thing people think about, you know, high-tech future cyborg headsets and floating images and symbols and appear before you. But what I want to get us doing is thinking more about, you know, not from a technology side, but thinking more from a user-centered side. So my plan of attack here is I'm going to go through a quick little argument as to why I think the future is going to be AR ubiquitous, that we're not far from a point where AR glasses are going to be as common as smartphones. So it'll be the kind of thing where, just like today, you can't imagine what life was like before smartphones, what was life like before the internet, what was life like before computers, what was it like before the automobile. I think augmented reality is going to be the next one that we're going to look back and go, I can't imagine what I would do without it. I use it in all of my life. And so, of course, that's going to open up a ton of markets. There's going to be a lot of, you know, companies started. They're going to be able to produce not only the content, but different, you know, applications for augmented reality. So what I want to do is kind of spark the innovation in a different way of thinking about it. So of course, if we're talking about innovation, we're talking about kind of the future. We always look at the Gartner hype cycle. This is the one from 2018. We'll see that augmented reality is right down there at the bottom. It's 2018, it was entering that trough of disillusionment. This is when people are like, you know what? AR just isn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to do all of this work for me. I thought it was going to be this amazing thing, but it might not be. So Gartner said we were there 2018 into 2019. And in fact, if we look at the 2019, like, where's AR? It's gone, right? Like, it's not even on that chart anymore. So is the hype like so far into that we're in that kind of slope of enlightenment, that plateau of productivity where we're using it all the time, so it's normal and it's not hyped anymore? Well, that's not really the case. It's not as normal as it would be if it's normally in that plateau. So is it as deep in that trough where people are just giving up and they've just said, look, you know, we're not that hyped about it. We're not quite sure it's going to do what it is, right? Is the hype for augmented reality dead, right? Like, is it dead and buried that we're not excited about it? I don't think so, and I think it's not that way because I think Apple's, you know, not giving up the ghost. Apple's excited about augmented reality. They're still working on it, and I think they're what's going to bring augmented reality back, kind of from this hype graveyard where it is. They're still working on ARKit, so they just announced a whole bunch of features for ARKit 4.0 at their Worldwide Developers Conference. Things like facial recognition additions, pose recognition. They are poaching employees or hiring the employees that have been let go from Magic Leap and Oculus and Microsoft. So Apple's hiring augmented reality employees like crazy. They bought Aconia Holographics that makes AR. They bought Vervana, who makes the Totem VR or AR headset. They bought PrimeSense, which is body sensing cameras and camera technology that's very useful in augmented reality. They bought this company that makes called Creator, where they make the software that they bill as augmented reality for non-developers, right? And in fact, just recently, right, June 18th, it was granted. They're still filing patents for augmented reality technology. So Apple is still pushing hard for AR, and we know how many people line up at Apple stores for the new products, right? They've got to get that new one. So the release of an Apple AR glass, that's going to be a big thing that kind of pushes us towards that idea of a tipping point, right? We've all seen this concept of the tipping point where if there aren't enough users, there's not enough use. It's a lot of hard work and it's slow going. But once you get a large enough number, it's all downhill from there. Everything becomes much easier. You've got that momentum. Well, I think Apple Glass release is going to be that tipping point that kind of pushes it over the edge. And expectations are saying it could be as soon as 2021, 2022. So we're not that far away from this point of, hitting that tipping point where suddenly everyone has it. We saw this with smartphones and the iPhone. We saw this with MP3 players and the iPod. We saw this with the mouse and the Macintosh computer, right? When Apple releases one, it kind of suddenly becomes much easier for everyone to start using this technology. So it really does kind of push to be that tipping point. A lot of people worry about that tipping point and that it might not happen because they think it might be this chicken and egg problem, right? That the egg being, technology and apps, the chickens being users. You're not going to have the technology if you don't have enough users, and you're not going to have enough users if you don't have the technology. But I don't think this is as much of an issue because we already have a lot of eggs. We have a lot of augmented reality applications that run on current smartphones. We have the technology available to build augmented reality glasses. They're capable of being made with the tech that exists already. We know that these apps are going to be built on, they're going to run on iOS and Android. They're going to be built using ARKit and ARCore and Vuforia, other SDKs that are already available. I'm teaching them already, right? I'm teaching students how to use them in classes. They're going to run on game engines like Unity and Unreal that are freely available for people to learn on their own, or again, we teach them in our classes here at UAT. So this technology is already out there. We're already teaching it. People are graduating with degrees in this technology. And we also have lots of chickens, right? Pokemon Go had 60 million monthly average users back in 2017. So years ago, we had millions and millions of users using it. So if it's not this like chicken and egg problem, what is it? And I think the issue is that the chicken is ugly, right? And no user wants to be an ugly chicken. So if we look at the technology now, right, this is what the HoloLens and the Magic Leap looks like. Nobody wants to run around town, looking like RoboCop. Nobody wants to look like the Fly, right? We want to look like this or this, right? This is the way that we want to look when we're wearing our technology, right? And I think the big one, the one that's going to come through and push it through, is the last one that popped up there, right? This is Apple CEO Tim Cook, right? He wears $1,000 eyeglass frames, right? He cares about the way that his eyeglasses look. He sees this as something that's important to who he is. Steve Jobs was the same way. If we go back in the Apple history, you can buy glasses that are specifically branded to be Steve Jobs style. So Apple knows about the style of glasses and how important that is. So I think they're going to be what pushes it over the edge is when we get those stylish glasses. And that, again, just a couple years off from Apple building those. Little side argument that often comes up when people say, oh, I don't think it's going to be ubiquitous. They say, well, it's expensive. What about people who can't afford them? I think it's going to be easy to afford them in the future, even though now these HoloLens headsets are, $3,000, 3,500 for HoloLens 2. Smartphones are expensive too, right? They cost money for us to get. They were pretty expensive to get, and we get them free. So I don't think it's going to be that unusual to think that we may find in the future that you get a free Apple Glass when you sign up for Verizon or T-Mobile or something of that effect, right? They'll work it into those subscriptions. We also have government programs that are working to kind of overcome that digital divide for people who can't even afford, the smallest technology. So once it gets out there and this technology is everywhere, it'll be made affordable to people who can't afford them. But I think the real money, or the real thing that's going to push augmented reality to ubiquitousness, to being everywhere, is the fact that there's such big money in ad platforms. The companies that make the most money right now, the big giants, tend to make their money off of ad networks, advertising platforms. And so we can imagine a future where you could have your own QR code or QR code like symbol, a custom symbol that's unique to you, that you've kind of designed. And everywhere you put that symbol, whether you put it on a t-shirt or you stick it on a sticker and put it on the wall, it gets replaced with a video ad to anyone who's using the augmented reality network. If technology like that starts to get built, then we'll start to find that they can share that CPM, that the revenue that's coming in from viewing those ads between the user and the ad network. So now every time you put your sticker up, you get 1/10 of a penny, and Google gets 3/10 of a penny, and you're getting these small amounts every time somebody sees it. What that means is the more people who have these glasses, the more money companies that have these ad platforms can make. So they're going to have a commercial value. They're going to have a financial value in making sure that as many people get glasses as possible. And I can definitely see a future where this ad revenue goes to these companies, and then they turn around and use that to provide free glasses to anyone who wants to make sure they're always on their network. If you're always looking at our ad network, if it's always on, you can't turn it off, we'll give you a free pair of AR glasses. And that idea of them being able to just be distributed because someone with the power of Google or Facebook has a financial interest in getting them to everyone is going to really help push that ubiquitousness. Like, we're approaching a future where when you see a homeless guy on the side of the road with a sign, he may not be holding a sign that says, "We'll work for food," right? He may be holding a sign that has a Taylor Swift Diet Coke ad, right? That when you look at it through the VR glasses, you can see this advertisement. And if you look at it for more than 4 seconds, if he can hold that sign in someone's vision for a long enough time for it to trigger the CPM, he gets money deposited in a prepaid Visa card. When we get to that point, right, and we're thinking about that idea of like, wow, this AR is everywhere, think back to this talk, say, wow, that Dr. Hugh guy, he was right. He got it. He knew that was going to happen. So I really think this is the future of where things are going with AR. And when we start heading towards that point, we want to look at, like, when AR glasses are as ubiquitous as smartphones, how do we make sure that we as entrepreneurs are part of that market? How do we innovate? How do we make sure that we're producing the products and the technologies that are going to fit into this ecosystem, this new world that is AR ubiquitous, right? And I think the key is, well, one of the keys a lot of people are hitting already. So there's a lot of elements that are already out there, and they're already being covered, a lot of simple examples. But I want us to look at some ways to innovate, to kind of think differently, to come up with some new concepts, some things that can be uniquely ours. So I'm going to show you some apps that already exist kind of in this general space. A lot of them are smartphone, etc. A lot of things that we currently have, and then kind of invite you to think some more about why those are popular, why they exist, and how thinking differently or thinking uniquely about this situation can really help you innovate and create new technologies. So to do this, I want us to focus on this kind of user-focused definition of AR, this idea that users use AR because it's just adding generated information. Users want information. We value knowledge, and we want to take that information, we want to add it to the real world. We get information from the real world all the time, right? I can put my hand near a fire and the real world tells me that fire is hot, tells me a rock is hard if I push up against it. I can look at a chair and be told by the universe that it's made of wood, right? But we also have this generated information, information that kind of comes from other people or comes from other sources that aren't just there in the world. So, you know, what is someone's name? What time is it? Where do they park? Right? Those kind of things we're looking for to kind of think about this information. So thinking of it in terms of what is the information that we can give to our users that they value. So this is the idea, you know, users pay for information that they value. We see this all the time, right? There's value in what is your name? You know, Avery sells millions of these labels every year, right? What time is it? We sell clocks. People pay money for them. Where did you park? Somebody had to buy the giant Lot E economy sign that's in the parking lot so that you can see where you parked. You can buy, you know, an arrow that says pool on it at a little Etsy store, and people are buying these all the time. The guy who spray painted the ground to show you what pipes are buried under the concrete, he receives a salary, gets paid. There's a market for this information. So to step into this AR world, we're going to look at this idea of like, how can we use AR technology to look at what information people already value, but present that information with greater value? How can you just enhance the value of information people are already getting? So here's the easy one, right? Like, you can get information about the temperature and time from these devices. So what if it was just always there? It was just floating in the corner of your eye. You don't have to look and hunt for it. Nice, easy one. We know the market's going to be hit with these, but if we think of this from that point of view of what is information people value, and how can we make it easy for them to access? So when you're thinking about what could you do in the AR space, start making a list of what information you value and ask yourself, how can I make this easy to get, easy to grasp? So again, the market's going to be flooded with little apps like this, but if we remember the birth of smartphones, right, where people were making millions off of the flashlight app that is now a normal part of your phone. Every phone has it built in now, but at a certain point in time, people were selling those and making a profit. There was a time where people were selling the beer drinking app. You turn your phone sideways and it looks like you're drinking a beer. Simple little things made people a lot of money. There was a big market. So that kind of innovation is something to look at. You know, don't discount the simple. There's a market for it. We thought about this idea of it's valuable to know someone's name, right? This is FindFace. They're in the news a bit right now because they're really pushing the idea that they can do facial recognition using information that's been scraped from social networking. So they don't own the social networking sites that they're pulling facial recognition data off of, but every time you tag someone in Facebook, this company can look at your Facebook posts, see the tag that you put in that Facebook post, just like you and I can see that tag. Their software can see that tag, and then they can use that so that when you walk into a store, they can identify your name, they can look at your Facebook profile to see your likes and dislikes, figure out what you might buy. If you've purchased something at the store before, they can notify an employee, so an employee can come up to you and say, hey, how's that new, I don't know, barbecue going? And you'll think to yourself, wow, I can't believe they remembered me. They didn't. It's facial recognition. And HoloLens is already looking at this idea as like, this is one of the things we plan to do with facial recognition technology, right? This is one of the things that we're planning to do with AR. So it's this question now of, we know that there's personal information that people would like to know at a glance just by looking at you. Ask yourself, what other information from looking at a person would you want to know? Or a good way for innovation is flip that on its head. What information do you want to display to people when they look at you? So when we reach that point of ubiquitousness of AR glasses, there's going to be a lot of money in, fandom markers. It's the same way that we do wearing a fandom T-shirt, right? Somebody may be wearing a T-shirt or a hat with their favorite sports team. Well, now you can take an AR badge, you can put an AR image that says this is your favorite sports team, this is your favorite TV show, this is your favorite movie. So that's a big question to think about when innovating for ARs. What information do you want to communicate to others when they see your face, when they look at you? Think about information desks, right? There's a reason that we hire someone to stand at an information desk and answer questions. When AR is ubiquitous, we can think about like presenting that information. So some of the information is like, how do I get to the restroom? How do I get to the parking lot? Where's my car? That kind of stuff. Where do we get to gate C? How do I find this location? So there are augmented reality indoor navigation and outdoor navigation apps, but think about how this is going to move into space when AR is ubiquitous, when this is on your glasses, right? We'll have an application where I can walk into a building and just say, where's the bathroom? And it'll show me the line on the floor that leads me to the bathroom. I don't have to find an information desk. Now, these are valuable because they're going to provide us information every step of the way. An information desk is only so valuable because when I ask the woman at the desk, where's the bathroom? I only know that information as long as I'm talking to her and I can remember it. I'm one of those people where I'll ask where something is, I'll take 4 steps and then I forget what they told me, or I'll only remember the first 2 turns. So they'll give me directions and I'm like, I just need the first 2 turns, and then I'll ask someone when I get there and I'll start going to the next 2 turns. But these apps can provide that information every step of the way. So the question of innovation that I want you to ask when you're thinking about AR apps, another one of those questions is, how can I take information that people value and give it to them every step of the way? They take one step, the information is still there. They take another step, the next piece of information is there. That's where we're going to find value and innovate in new augmented reality software. That's something to look to build. Here's the big one. This is the one that I always love when I think about augmented reality. I lose things all the time. Where are my keys? Where's my phone? Where's my, where did I put my, I've got a little tie pin that I wear, a little tie clip, and I can never find it. Where did I put it? It's possible with technology that we have today to take my cell phone or take any camera and scan an object from all directions. Just kind of look at it from all angles with the phone, and it'll form a 3D version of that object that my phone can then recognize when it visually sees it on the camera. So that anytime on camera it sees that object, anytime that object enters the camera's field of view, it can remember the location that it saw that object. So if my keys were in this room and I was just scanning the room and my camera were to see that object, remember in the ubiquitous AR world, cameras are on everyone's foreheads. Everywhere you look, a camera is looking, right? If that camera sees my keys, it can remember where they are. And when I say, glasses, where are my keys, it can put a giant red arrow pointing at that location. So I know exactly where they're at. This is where the camera last saw them. Better yet, we can network this technology so that if anyone has their camera pass over my car keys, it remembers where they're at and I can see that location. So even if I'm not in the room, even if I haven't been in the room where it's at, if somebody else's camera scans it, it could be looking for my keys, for my information. This idea of networking this AR together is the AR cloud. It's a big technology that is on that hype cycle. It is something that people are talking about. So I think that, yeah, we talk about the tipping point, may not be the Apple one. It may just be that when I never lose my bleeping car keys again point. When we reach that point in life where I never have to lose an item again, we're going to reach that point where I can't imagine going back. I'll try and rapidly fly through some of the other questions of innovation. Hopefully these spark ideas. If you're looking to get into AR, things that you can do, ways to come up with new technologies. Quick one, looking at expert information. An expert can look at a plant and know exactly what that plant is. We can build apps. In fact, there are apps for the phone, augmented reality already. You point them at a leaf, it tells you what the plant is. Think about that question. What information do you need from an expert, but you don't want to become an expert? If you can answer that question, it's a perfect thing to build an AR app around. Doesn't have to just be visual. It can be audio, right? My phone will tell me what song is currently playing. So think about, is there any audio information that I want to know about that AR can help me find? We talked about this idea of spray painting where the underground elements are. But this exists for other things as well, right? AccuVein can show veins to nurses inside of someone's arm. I get this ad for the Stud Finder app or device for a phone all the time. This idea of being able to see things that are invisible or hidden, right? What else is there? How can you show hidden information? So that's a good way to think of an innovative concept. If you want to build the future of AR, say, what hidden information can I make visible to people? Can I show people that right now is hidden? For example, right, looking at my living room, right, time, the circumstances, the way things are can also hide information. So I can see the way my empty living room looks, but I can ask, how would it look if I had furniture? How would it look if I bought this item? So we'll see this a lot with those shopping apps. What would my house look like with this furniture in it? What would I look like if I'm wearing this piece of clothing that's out there? So when you think about revealing hidden information, don't limit that information to just being like, oh, I want to see where a pipe is behind a wall. Think about being hidden by time, being hidden by the fact that you don't have the right financial circumstances right now, or you're not in the right location at the moment, and what would it look like if it did? So what ifs can be hidden scenarios. Like my favorite, what if my wall was a giant movie screen, right? That's one that will be really nice in the era of AR. So anything that we see currently done with screens, or better yet, anything you see in a sci-fi movie that's done with a hologram, can be done with AR. So those are all going to be markets where we're going to be able to jump in and kind of, you know, find products that we can sell and do things. So I've got a second trigger. So that first one was that idea of like looking at it differently, looking at how you can add information. But the second thing that I just want to jump into real fast, I know I'm a little over, I'm getting near the end of my time, is to get into this idea of like, how can we flip what we think about AR? We always think about improving the value of the real world by adding an AR experience. I want to improve my my museum visit by adding an animated dinosaur on top of the skeletal dinosaur. I want to improve the real world of my yard or my living room by adding this furniture, what it would look like. But I invite you to think about, if you want to change the future and be innovative in AR, think about how can you alter the real world to improve the value of AR experiences. We'll reach a point where AR experiences are common, they're everywhere, they're normal, and everyone will be focused on improving the AR experience or improving the real world with AR. And think about how you can change the real world to up that AR experience. So I've got this question of like, when I can put that giant movie screen on my house, I can put it on the wall of my bedroom, who's going to go to a movie theater? Right? What's the movie theater experience going to be if I have a giant movie screen anywhere I want one? Well, to answer that, think about the luxury box experience. Creating this real world environment that's luxurious, that's enjoyable, that's nice to be in, and then the back wall is your AR movie screen. So it's the same AR experience that other people are working on building, that other companies are focusing on, and you're focusing on building a real world in which that AR experience is better. In a real world luxury box, the experience of looking at an AR wall would be much better. right? This is where we get into the idea of virtual travel, right? We want to go to see the real world. We want to be there live. We want to see the way it is now, the real world itself. I don't want to go to a 3D model of Paris. I want to go to Paris itself as it exists, right? But we may not want to fly. We may not want to deal with all of these issues that are there. We may want to just do it through a VR experience. So that's when we can get this idea of VR live experiences, where you're actually looking at a live experience, but you're able to move around in VR. So this is an example using current technology. This is current gen iPhones doing pretty much real-time photogrammetry. So just by looking at this object, it's making a 3D model and texturing it the way that it looks. More advanced than this, we think of the idea that we can do it on a cloud. We can do it multi-user. So we notice that while one person is moving their phone around, the other person is getting the 3D model. So this idea of that one camera can be scanning and all of the devices can be sharing that 3D information, that's going to allow us to reach a point where if everyone in the world is wearing their AR glasses, we can be making a real-time 3D map with color textures, looks correct version of the world. This is what that AR cloud is. So if you think about the hype cycle, there's companies, BlipR, Magic Leap calls it their Magicverse, Blue Vision is one. There's an open AR cloud project that wants to do an open version that anyone can access. Lots of big companies investing in the AR cloud to have this idea of building this 3D version of the world that can be shared. Just real quick, this is PrimeSense doing the same thing. This is a PrimeSense camera that does it really fast and really effective. This is a company Apple just bought. So again, Apple's looking at getting into that field a lot more. And then if you're like me and you think vacations are better without other people, without other tourists, Apple's through RealSense, right, has this technology where you can cut the people. Well, this isn't showing cutting, it's just showing displaying where they're at. But they can display where they're at, recognize what parts are people, what parts are not. And you could even build this technology today to cut people out of your VR tour of the world. This is another one, same idea, right? Where we're taking the real world and putting it into the virtual. This is a cut and paste app that can look at a real world object and kind of cut it out. And now you can put it in your website, in your document. It's this idea of taking the real world and using it to enhance the virtual one. And again, one of the uses of Vuforia is taking a real life toy. Imagine a scenario where there's a video game where you can only unlock a character if your AR glasses see that you're holding the toy at that moment. It gets people to buy that physical object. Or a discount code that only applies when you can physically see an object that's in the stores. It's too big or uniquely shaped for that to be recreated somewhere else. And you have to see that object and see that you're in the store in 3 dimensions. You have to walk around it to activate that discount code. These are the idea of taking real world objects and using them to kind of enhance the AR experience. So quick summary, wrap things up here. The hype on AR may have died down or been dying down, but this AR ubiquitous future, it's coming. We're gonna have a future where everyone is wearing an AR device. It's just gonna be a normal part of our lives, something that we're used to. This is gonna open the door for innovations and getting into this market. And especially, I shouldn't say, if, that sounds like only if, but it's especially true that we can innovate if we look at AR in this different way, right? If instead of just thinking, I'm just going to, take something that's out there already and just put, computer graphics on top of something in the world. We can say, no, look, I'm going to look at the information. And we say, what info do people value? And how can I increase that value with AR? I'm not necessarily coming up with something new. I'm not showing them something unique. I'm actually listening to people ask questions. Go stand at an information booth at the airport, listen to what questions people ask, and put those into an app. Stand at a store and listen to people asking the store employees for answers. Any questions that people are asking, you can answer with AR and create a unique and innovative AR product that answers those. And then the second one is flip it on its head. Instead of thinking about improving the real world by adding AR to it, think about how can I change the real world to improve the value of AR and then sell access to that real world. There's going to be a market for that that may be overlooked, may be missed, and then just make sure that you're able to look at all of those areas. So that's kind of my talk. That's kind of the information I wanted to present here. I'm open to any questions or anything else.
All right, thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in either the Q&A box or in the chat box down at the bottom. And I have a question for you. Actually, there are a couple of things that ran through my head during this presentation. How do you program for augmented reality? It's just something that I'm not familiar with. Do you take an image and based on what is received, then it displays something else? Or what does that look like for the programming side?
All right, so there's a couple of levels at which I can answer that question. So there's companies that are putting out software development kits, SDKs for augmented reality. And at their level, there's a lot of really complex things that they're doing about looking for differences of colors between pixels. Most of them have moved into machine learning so that they're providing lots of examples to a deep learning algorithm, and that algorithm is figuring out just what's the pattern between how to get it to work or not. So it can be really complex on that level. But in terms of building AR apps, these SDKs are really easy to use. And they're incorporated into the commonly used game engines. So if you actually go to Microsoft and you ask them, I want to make something for HoloLens, how do I do it? The first thing they actually tell you is to go get the Unity game engine and start working in Unity. Because those are free softwares that allow you to display 3D images, display graphics and text on the screen, and then integrate with these SDKs that do this kind of computer vision without a lot of difficult work. You don't have to do the heavy lifting of writing that code. It's right there in these SDKs and in these game engines. So for the most part, it's coming through the Unity and Unreal game engines.
Got it. And then we got a question from an attendee. What do you think of the ethical implications of using facial recognition with AR?
Yeah, so like most technologies, this technology can be used for good or for evil, right? And it's very easy for them to use it for evil, right? Like this scenario happens quite often of them being able to, track things that they don't necessarily need to or do these setups. But I think it's one of those things that we'll find that I myself, I'm very pro technology on those sides of things. So the idea of being able to walk into a store and I say, hey, my video card isn't working. And the store immediately knows which brand of video card, what type it is, when I bought it, how long ago I purchased it. The ability to answer that question immediately without having to ask me all of that is great, right? Like I'm in favor of that idea of being able to walk into a clothing store or go somewhere and just by looking at my face, it tells me this is the clothing that will fit you, right? These are the things that are going to be best for you. This is your style in this section. Here's where you should go. I like that ability myself, but I know that there's a lot of people who are concerned about that. They feel that they'd rather have their privacy than have that kind of ease of use of those scenarios. So it really comes down to those situations as to how it's being used and how they choose to use it. But I think over time, we're going to become more and more comfortable with those, what we would consider privacy invasions right now. When the Microsoft Kinect first came out for the Xbox, people freaked out that it was recording what they said, sending it to Microsoft to be studied and analyzed, and then sending back the commands of what it should do. And gamers were like, shut it down. I don't want this device. Whoever created it needs to die, right? They were furious. They were very upset about this technology. But now we have the Amazon Dot, the Amazon Alexa in our houses that not only do that, but when the cloud can't recognize what you're saying, it sends it to a human being to type in what you said. So there's some random person listening to what you said and typing it in. there's a funny meme that says, you know, don't say anything too loud. The FBI may have listening devices. And then the next one says, hey, listening device, how do I make pancakes, right? So
Nice.
it's true. We have those in our houses now that we never would have. We would have been furious about it. So 10, 20 years from now, we may be more open to those um, technologies. And I think they're very valuable. I like the idea of um, something being able to recognize me and then adapt to work precisely the way I need it to adapt, right?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. How long do you think it'll be before we can integrate AR technology, like you'd mentioned, in regular eyeglasses? Do you think it will ever be possible to get that
Yeah, I
stuff?
truly think that's what Apple's trying to do, and that's why they haven't announced yet. That like the technology to do augmented reality is pretty much out there. If you look at the HoloLens and the Magic Leap, they're a little weird in how they kind of are translucent and they don't necessarily look perfect and they don't look like, you know, the real world on top of the real world, but they're usable for everything that I talked about us doing. They can show you information. They can provide information about what's hidden behind a wall. They just provide it in a way that is obviously virtual. You look at it and you go, yes, this is definitely a computer graphic on top of the real world. But it's possible, except that they, you know, look funny, right? You look like RoboCop or The Fly. You don't, and people don't want that. So we want to be into those glasses. So I think Apple has, I mean, I'm guessing, this is purely my guess. I'm guessing they have the technology to build everything they want to do in that way for AR. They just can't make it look right, right? They can't get it to look like glasses. But everyone is expecting, you know, 2021, 2022, that they're going to release ones that are that way. And I truly think that that's going to be the case. So like my bet would be on 2021, we're going to get eyeglasses that may not do, you know, it's not going to be what we think, that idea of like, you won't be able to tell the difference between the virtual and the real. You'll definitely know that the information is virtual information. I'll know that that big arrow pointing at my car or my car keys is a computer generated arrow. But I won't mind because I still don't want to lose anything again, right? I don't want to lose my car keys. I'd love it. I think about how I never worry about forgetting a phone number now because they're in my phone. They're always there. I'm carrying them with me. There's a lot of information that I don't worry about forgetting because it's right there in my phone. And when that's right there in front of me in my vision, in my line of sight, I'm going to be very happy that I don't have to remember, deal with that information.
Yeah, that's great. All right, any more questions from the audience? Don't see any more popping up. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Hugh. That was really great information and has definitely sparked some interest. Sometimes I pick these topics based on things that I would like to know more about. So thank you so much. For those of you that weren't able to make it today, the session is recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. So you will receive an email with that information. If you have any questions about upcoming events, you can always check us out on Eventbrite. And the previous sessions are available also on our YouTube channel. So the next event should be coming up sometimes next month, and you'll receive an email with more information about that. If you have any questions or anything about Perimeter 83, please feel free to visit us online at perimeter83.com, or you can send me an email at jsmith@perimeter83.com. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude today's session, and thank you again for everything, and I look forward to speaking with you offline.